Set you free, but I really want to let you be. And a part of me wished I could set myself aside, just let you take the ride, just chalk the rest up to destiny. I could let you believe that the only restraints in life are the size of your dreams. Let you believe each kid grows up with the world at their feet. When I know too well it's open season, I know they're taking stock and raising stocks and raising stock. And I'm simply not here to sit and watch as you learn the lesson all cogs are taught. Keep your head down and keep to task and just keep on blocking the rest of it all out. Just keep on with the rest of the herd of a million adjacent oblivious workers. The forest unseen for the trees, and the trees unseen for the fallout. No, what's more damning, baby, the truth or the ignorance? Fuck it, I honestly wonder if I see the answer so well. Baby, believe me, well, I know it's scary, I scare myself. If I could find a way out of my head, I would run like hell. I would ditch this body politic, mindless occupant somewhere far from the dismal abyss. In the tranquil crystalline bliss of the beach, I could rest with the rest of the shells. And if anyone asks, I'm anywhere else. If I'm really needed, just light the candle, then read the book, and then ring the bell. Oh, my untarnished heart, my little perfect soul. This world will melt your mercy down so they can sell its gold. This world will take your worth and then demand 1,000-fold. It's full of greedy pigs who'll eat you out of house and home. They'll strip your bank account and sweep you somewhere down the road, and then return to eat your tent and shitty bike you rode. Your bottled water, only shoes and coat and broken phone. Then smiling in your face, they'll tell you that the shelter's closed.
An extreme way of thinking.
Hoped you would never find out, knew that you had to know. Pulling what's left of my mind out, trying to tell you so. I tried to block the light out, knew you could feel its glow. I've been here holding my hands out, trying to keep you close, trying to keep you close.
Oh, my untarnished heart, my little perfect soul. This world will melt your mercy down so they can sell its gold. This world will take your worth, then demand 1,000-fold. I tried to block the light just so I could keep you close. False alarm. I thought that help was here, but it was my own reassurance bouncing round 100,000 times in my own ecosphere. If every time you speak you keep it off the record, consequently you can keep your record clear. And if you mute the speech that shakes your frail beliefs, you only seek to insulate your image and continue down the stream in the direction clout and credit steers. Directly from your mouth into am I the asshole Reddit's ears. Directly back into the greasy pockets of some Gates Foundation financiers. And then directly back into the frantic final thoughts of early trial Neuralink volunteers, staring at the numb and mumbling vacancies where recently had been their peers. Half of whom are glitching with the memory stuck on pause, and half have zero fucking clue just who they are or why they're here. It's been said that fear is all we have to fear, but that was back before the basosphere condenser came along, distilling concentrated fear that's diamond pure, crystal clear, oppressor strong, and woven into every single article you read and song they let you hear. And then Elon heard that Jeff enhanced our fears by 86%, and he said, hold my beer. And not a single sheep among the herd would turn their head or say a word, cause they were all too busy begging for the shears, begging for the muzzle, happy just to guzzle, feed, and watch a screen for all their years. Man, to each his own, can't afford a home, but they'll let you have your cozy little ecosphere, where there among your own devices you can break the seventh seal, overthrow the oracles, and slay the seer. All the tomes were burned and all the lips were seared. Shut your eyes and all our lives just disappear. Now blink 'em twice. Welcome to your ecosphere.
Sorry I'm so gloomy, but the gloom is half the mood. Welcome to the country where they throw out half the food. Like fuck you if you're hungry, we got better things to do. Got a million more priorities than human rights for you.
Just empty stomachs wandering an empty store, with shelves as empty as our craters left on distant shores. They mark the spot where once a country thrived that even tried to help its poor. Now in its place a fascist state where rape is just a tool of war. I guess they took a page from out the book we used in '64. Villagers we stacked in graves, caked in fucking Agent Orange. Now cut to yesterday, Afghanistan endures the very storm that swept its way through Vietnam, where even now the blood is warm. And even now Fallujah celebrates to see a baby born who's not deformed, not warped by little presents we left hidden in the dirt, courtesy of all your friends at the World Economic Forum. Courtesy of civilized political decorum. Unity across the aisle, both sides agreeing via war crime quorum. I'd like to say that when they start the midterm texts, I'll be able to ignore them, but I know myself well enough to know I'm gonna draw them all rhetorically, then verbally I'll quarter them, lyrically I'll carpet bomb and mortar them, purely via metaphor I'll bury them alive, but upside down, with the utmost blasphemy intended out of spite. Now lyrically I'll lead them by the eyes, cause lyrically I'm still beneath the ice, scratching at the surface for a purpose they deny. And every time they smile and they look me in the eyes, suddenly I'm 6 feet under subprime. 6 feet standing firmly in between you and the sunrise. And now your movement's as restricted as the sunrise. Now it's crippled into parody like Occupy. Young hearts be 3 young Turks, here to slowly poison hearts and minds. Here to get them speaking press release in record time. Here to get them standing up for AOC and every other Langley plant who sprays a coat of tax the rich across their Semper Fi. Now the skies are nice and clear, the drones are set to fly. They're following the pipeline of how the West was won to how the West declined, to how the West made debt into a genocide, to how the West demolishes a picket line, to how the West contaminates a riverside, to how the West's war crimes are glamorized, to how the West protects the kind of medical neglect that is infanticide at best and is at worst an ethnic cleansing rite. Nah, it's safe to say it's all fun and games until the feds arrive. Oh shit. Last stand, and I came to deliver. Been called a Clinton operative, a Russian, and a grifter. By libs, a washing student debt, proud to be an intern, sucking up to pigs who get a tax cut in the midterms. You cut the ties but never heal the wrist burns. Capitalist shackles wrap and penetrate like ringworms around the necks of those whose deaths will not affect the king's purse or the coffers of the company the king serves, who manufacture mandated tinctures. They're safetied out of hanging from a fixture, half a mile skyward, just dangling from the rafters. My grift is sobbing till I'm cackling with laughter. I guess I would have made a decent actor. I'd be great at crying on command until they cut plus 40 minutes after. When the director waves a hand, it ain't a rap, it's now a legal matter. Honey, my grift is weeping on a mic until I'm hacking up airstrike verses like it's bombs away and batter up. Swinging on these bigots, they keep killing us to fatten up. Kill the switch, eat the rich, I think they're finally fat enough. Grab your knife and fork, the world is yours, just say you've had enough. And if you're comfy, you could go ahead and laugh it up. Tell me how the most important vote I'll ever cast is like the choosing of a bus, in that it might not take you anywhere you want, but no one can deny the fact the bus is now no longer where it was. And that's the kind of progress we should celebrate and trust. Spoken like a kid who never took a bus. Spoken like a piece of shit that used some cash to mask his stink and truly thinks he's one of us. Spoken like a terminally unserious person who equates our cries for rights to mixed up orders from a server. It paints a privileged picture of what you would label urgent if the worst thing you've experienced in life has been the time your waiter accidentally brought a tray of gold flake scallop when you clearly ordered gold flake urchin. And now you're storming out the restaurant and hopping in a Tesla. You got 80 pounds of Tony Fauci merchant.
Rewind 2 chains won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride. Rewind 2 chains won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride.
Best to place your bets on weaponizing the identity of every limp progressive claiming grassroots integrity. Policy is a slippery slope for all of its complexity, so flex your brave resistance with this Ilhan Omar NFT. Numbered 1 of 723. Each depicts her valiantly championing a bill before she lays it at a donor's feet. And she can throw her hands up in the air with AOC and say if only Nina Turner could have voted present too. That's why we...
An off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us. We want to talk right down to earth. in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
It's us. We're these people.
I love that intro. I love that intro so much.
I'm here with a different co-host this time, Oz LaFave.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on.
Friend of the show, DJ Joe Nice. How are you, friend?
What's good? And you hear Nick say this all the time. The United States is the most propagandized country in the world.
We are so fucked, you guys. Again, I'm sorry for being cynical, but seriously,
No.
we're fucked. We are
Right.
fucked. We are well and truly fucking fucked.
Just appreciate all the work that you do and the platforms that you all are providing.
Hey, doing good. How are you guys doing?
And as independent media, we have a responsibility to be, we don't hide our bias, obviously, but we must stay true to the facts.
What's up, Pam?
Cheers and salutations. Smoke 'em if you got them.
But I am here with a man that I've been waiting to talk to for the last couple of years, Nico House.
As an educator, what I would suggest is that, first of all, podcasts like these are made.
So you need to be an example for the people and for the future, knowing that your words can actually change the future.
What do you feel? What would Kwame Ture feel we would have to do?
Well, politics is every day of every minute. You have to be aware of what's going on. Not voting on one day, so the vote has never meant anything. So I'm not a Democrat.
See, I would call that guy the Black Obama.
No. The issues that we talk about, listen to us.
As always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
INN News.
What's up, fam? It's another episode of INN News. INN News. How are you, Kid Bear? You doing all right?
Good, how are you?
Tired, exhausted, angry at the world. What else is new?
I was sick the last few days. So,
yeah.
My
you got one of those
toilet was
children's plagues. Yeah.
It could have been or something I ate over the weekend that didn't agree with me. That took me a few days, as it would.
Yeah.
Gang over. So, but yeah, feel
marginally
a lot better now.
Marginally better.
No. Well, given the state of the world, but other than that, yeah, I feel physically a lot better.
Is Wednesday? Is that the right Wednesday button? Go. Why Wednesday button don't work? Why? Well, fine then. Well, it's Wednesday. We brought some stories, but as always, we appreciate the support. Like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Leave a comment if you're watching this, as a clip. That'd be nice too. But anything else we got to go over before we start?
Yeah, I think, well, I'll just preface this normally by, well, I'll say this anyway, but we want to give a shout out to Richard Medhurst and JB. Both of their channels got demonetized this week due to talking about Israel Palestine.
Yeah.
Obviously we are going to talk about that stuff tonight. So, but even with that, like, I'm honestly a little nervous too, because we've gone strikes and community guideline warnings from YouTube before. Obviously, we don't want to do anything or say anything that will get us demonetized, given that we've only been demonetized for just short of a year at this point. That being said, though,
we're on we're on Rumble. You want to find us there, which is always useful to go subscribe. We got those links in the description.
I would say this, given our last stream got demonetized. So my guess is this stream in of itself will get demonetized. So, which going into this, we never, well, our main objective in being a part of INN was not to make money per se. It's basically to spread truth and giving different creators a chance to come together and kind of create this network, which we have done now for almost 2 years. So, and and just to be very transparent, we have not made much money out of this. I think we've only made less than $1,000
right
so far
in like 2 years.
So,
Yeah. So
well, just under a year.
We appreciate these members scrolling across the page. That's one of the best ways to support us on Patreon or here on YouTube, until they take our ability to do that away.
So I say this every week. Don't feel compelled to give. Obviously, you guys watching is gift enough, and sharing our stuff, liking our stuff, commenting on our stuff, which I've noticed a lot of you guys are definitely commenting, so that's helpful for us. So
Very
thank you
much
for
so.
that. We know times are hard for many people financially. So obviously, if you, as we say, take care of yourselves, take care of your families, take care of your communities first. That being said, if you feel compelled to give financially to us, as long as we have ability with super chats,
right,
and then Patreon and other stuff, please do that. And as we said, we're probably going to be talking about Israel, Palestine for a minute, and we expect most of our, I think at least for a minute, most of our streams will be demonetized immediately, because we don't usually talk about the safe stuff. We like talking about the stuff that does get us demonetized or limited funding, which basically means for YouTube you're not getting anything.
Right, you're getting a very small amount, but
if that. But
whatever, we're in other places. If you want to support us there, you can. I'll try to make sure to check in on the rock fins and the rumbles between segments.
Right. So
always,
all that to say, in addition to supporting us, please support other independent creators in the space too, because as we said, given Israel is such a hot topic, YouTube is beginning to, as we said, come down on Richard and JB. Jackson Hinkle also got demonetized permanently off of YouTube. So any financial support, so we're able to kind of cover these stories without necessarily the support of YouTube, will be helpful to us. So thank you in advance, and we love you.
Love you too.
Appreciate you.
But anyway, let's get to some stories. You brought some.
So yeah, speaking of money, and Borg has gone reported since I prepped for this yesterday that I'll kind of mention, but we got a good gist of this in this upcoming segment. So so it's more or less a thing. You guys are very smart. We're giving away money to Israel as well as Ukraine. But the totals now are a lot higher than, well, depending how it works out, but potentially could be a lot higher than what has been reported, what I'm going to share here. So, but yeah, as the saying goes, they got money for war, but no money for us. Essentially.
Some Tupac guy, right? Said that, I do believe.
Yes. And then that is Pac. And then obviously, since we've been bombarded with a lot of information online and in mainstream media regarding Israel Palestine, and just trying to figure out what is truth, what is not, and how mainstream media is taking advantage of giving us false information to, you can probably guess, to make Israel more sympathetic than they really need to be. So this is an Alan McLeod article that we're going to read through that kind of talks about that.
Alan McLeod?
And then what do you have? And then what you got?
I got a bit of Craig Murray. he was recently detained. So I brought that and his article on condemning Hamas and such. So that should be interesting. And then I brought a Kiriakou article on the Victimizer's Memorial, and you're probably wondering what that might be, and you're just gonna have to wait and find out what that might be. Collin, it's near you. If that makes your guess any better, as mini a memorial is.
I mean, we'll talk about. I did read like maybe the first paragraph or two last night. So yeah, it's
fucking bullshit, ain't it?
well, not the whole article, but yeah, just
yeah,
whatever.
We'll get to it. It's gonna be interesting. So, money for war, you say?
Money for war. So, yeah. So that, I mean, not surprised to anyone here, but yeah, we're giving or potentially giving more money to Israel on top of the $4 billion that we give them a year.
A year.
A year. So, but yeah, well, let's get into it. And as I said earlier, it may be potentially a lot more money that they're going to get, depending how things go within the next few days or so. This was pulled. Actually, shout out to Nuno Marquez, who actually has been sending me a lot of information, like other sources that we normally do not get or normally cannot get because we live here. Since he's based in Europe, he's able to pull other articles that I may not necessarily think of immediately. But this is from the Times of Israel, where they report that Israel has asked the U.S. for $10 billion in emergency military aid. And it continues.
That's billion with a B? 10?
Billion with a B.
Oh, yeah. God. Okay.
So Israel has asked the United States for $10 billion in emergency military aid, the New York Times reports, citing 3 officials familiar with the request. The aid package is currently being put together by Congress in coordination with the White House and will also include funds for Ukraine, Taiwan, and the U.S.-Mexico
border. Okay. What the what? Why?
I mean,
Collin, why are all those in there?
I mean, you gotta finish that wall.
Bro, what? I thought we were gonna have Mexico pay for it. I thought wasn't that?
Well, that was under Trump. Biden made no such promises.
Oh yeah, Biden said we were gonna pay for it. I forgot. And then he was gonna lock up all those crazy kids who didn't listen to records at night, right? Something like that. Oh, okay.
Sure.
So just war, and then racist border patrol. Got it.
Yeah.
That's what we're funding. Cool.
Yes. Over anything else.
Yeah, right. Chucky the Shoe, I'm sure, is going to be very happy with this deal.
Sure. Speaking of Chuck, he said during a visit to Tel Aviv on Sunday that U.S. lawmakers have discussed providing Israel with replacement ammunition for the Iron Dome missile defense system, precision-guided bombs, JADM kits to turn standard bombs into precision munitions, and 155 millimeter ammunition. So, more accurate boomies, it sounds like, that they want to give. So that was actually the article. Now, this was also from Nuno as well. So this was actually what the White House had listed on the White House page, I believe on October 7th. So this was over almost 2 weeks ago.
AOC cried for supporting, right?
No.
I think. Okay.
No, because this got pulled from the White House website. So, but as the saying goes, screenshots are forever.
Yeah.
So, so I did get a hold of this, but basically, if you look through the fine print, if you just look below, at the bottom, that Biden approved the allocation of $8 billion for defense and military aid to Israel. So again, that was back on October. That was back on again.
This is before they asked for another 10.
Yes.
Okay.
So, well, this was posted on the White House website. Then it got pulled. My guess is probably due to, you know, issues with Ukraine.
Yeah.
That they didn't want to necessarily give out this money without Zelensky being like, well, where's my money? So they pulled this because this was no longer on the website after I saw this. That's why, so that's why it wasn't necessarily reported at the time. But just to give you an idea, Biden, at least at that point, 2 weeks ago, approved $8 billion to go to Ukraine. And now Israel is asking for 10. Well,
$8 billion to Israel, and then now they're asking. Now we need two more billion.
Right.
On top of this,
and now, according to reports, Biden is looking to give $100 billion combined to Ukraine and Israel. So my guess is Ukraine will get most of that. And then I wouldn't be surprised if Israel gets more than 10.
Well, you say that
out of that.
The Ukraine stuff people have been pulling back on, as far as like they wouldn't let Zelensky into Israel. Like that was a thing.
Right.
Like that's
right.
You might not get that. Like you might not get whatever you thought you were going to get in Ukraine. A ton of accounts are being shut down over that and transitioning to being Israel's NAFO group. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll definitely look. Yeah, I'm interested to see the kind of a breakdown of how much this money is going to go. But in addition to that, and this was new as of today, didn't have time to report on this, that Biden is also allocating 100 million to humanitarian aid to Palestine, which shout out to Nico for actually mentioning this, and I wish I did pull up his tweet earlier before we went live. But he basically mentioned that's impossible to do that because right now Palestine is not in the capability to receive any money right now. So right now, we're suppressed as hell.
yeah, like right. Social emotional learning with Dr. Donnie. I had a hard time finding this channel on YouTube. You don't say.
Yeah,
you don't say there, Dr. Donnie.
Looking at INN where you have to type us in the thing.
The full thing, Indie News Network, to even get close to finding us.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's easier to find us on Twitter, which at Get Indie News on Twitter if you want to go there.
So
you know.
But here's the thing though. Like Palestine allegedly is getting 100 million while Ukraine and Israel combined are getting 100 billion.
Yeah.
Like, you know, where's the bias?
Uh-huh.
You know? So but yeah, so we're not going to play the whole thing. There is a full clip if you go to Sky News and you can watch this interview in full detail. We're not going to have you suffer through that, and we can't pull it. Well, we could, but we're not going to have you suffer from watching 20 minutes of Janet Yellen. But
it is.
Yeah, but
I couldn't even find Nico on Twitter. It was like I forget, it's like real Nico, and then even that wouldn't find him. Like
Oh, what are you looking up?
The tweet you said you were looking for.
Actually, if you look on my Twitter page, I think I retweeted. I retweeted it.
Cool.
So, do you want to look that up now, or do you want
I'm looking it up while we can do video first.
Let's do video first. So this is short anyway. So yeah. So this went viral earlier in the week. Of Miss Janet Yellen, basically being like, "Oh yeah, we will be able to support both Israel and Ukraine. Yeah, we got the money for that." So
this tweet you were saying.
Yeah. So Nico, shout out to him, mentioned, "I'm going to need to see the bill of what that's supposed to go." Meaning the aid
this
that's supposed
$100
to
million to Gaza, right?
Right. Because funding to the West Bank isn't allowed. All that money goes through Israel's hands. So is this just an Israel military grant disguised as humanitarian aid to Gaza?
I almost guarantee.
Right. So yeah, Palestine is not going to get that money.
Yeah. Nope.
But anyway, you could play this now of Janet Yellen's comments regarding us giving them more money.
I started by asking her whether there are any conditions attached to America's support for Israel given the unfolding humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Her answer to that was very clear. She said, quote, "America stands behind Israel, period." I also asked her whether America could afford to support two foreign wars at the same time, and a similarly clear answer to that, absolutely. And this was why she said absolutely.
The American economy is doing extremely well.
No, it's not.
Inflation has been high, and it's been a concern to households. It's come down considerably. At the same time, we have about the strongest labor market we've seen in 50 years with 3.8% unemployment.
Y'all motherfuckers need to get glasses then.
A burgeoning of investment, especially in manufacturing, an industrial renaissance in the United States.
Meaning
I
we
have
can
not
make weapons.
known or experienced this industrial renaissance, unless it's what. Actually, that's a good point. Unless she's talking about
weapons
Raytheon,
manufacturing,
and Boeing.
Right. Yeah, the only people who've been making money.
Sure.
Pfizer, Moderna, all those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
The war profiteers have been profiteering, she says, through gritted teeth. Like, okay.
Yeah, so I guess that's what she meant by the economy.
Dude, how can you look at the economy right now and think anyone is doing well? Like, I don't know how you can.
Well, if you're rich, then yes, it's doing well for you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, even that's not really, like, you're maintaining, so.
Sure, but if you don't have real worries to worry about, if you don't have to worry about
it's
debt,
fine. You just have to worry about being touched by a pour on your way to the fucking Starbucks. That's all they got to worry about right now. They got to get on the other side of the street real quick, That was the fun. So I watched that the other day. UFC fighter Leon Edwards, right? Black British man. Like was in Britain, and some lady got scared and like literally went to the other side of the street, and he followed that fucking lady. Like, oh, I'm scary now, huh? Like, like just literally chased this lady into like in the alley. Just like, I'm black, I'm not gonna hurt you. It's like, it was very funny. Anyway, you have story.
Yeah, you can zoom out of. So this is just to give more, since we're not going to have you watch what Jen's going to say. We're just going to read the article about what she said. So this is from Sky News. where, as she said, America can certainly afford to support Israel and Ukraine. U.S. Treasury Secretary says. In an exclusive interview, Janet Yellen urged Republicans to appoint a new House of Representatives Speaker to enable greater financial support to be agreed for both Israel and Ukraine. So I guess this is what happens when, I guess in the name of bipartisanship, I suppose, is why she wants, I guess. Okay. But
Beauty and the Boomer is sending in a $2 super sticker to make sure he gets that money to Janet Yellen. We'll make sure she gets it us.
Janet Yellen has told Sky News the United States can certainly afford to support wars on two fronts as a conflict between Israel and Hamas threatens stability in the Middle East.
Fuck you, Sky News.
And the U.S. continues to back. And the U.S. continues to back Ukraine's fight against Russia.
Already phrasing it as Israel versus Hamas. Already, Sky News doing great.
Right. Yeah, well, those of you who don't know, Sky News, right-leaning
British, like
press,
corporate,
like they're. I would almost argue their equivalent of Fox News, almost.
Yes, one of. Yeah, they have a few.
Talking exclusively to Wilfred Frost ahead of a meeting of finance ministers in Luxembourg, the U.S. Treasury Secretary said the economy and public finances were in good shape to ensure backing for U.S. interests abroad. She said it remained too early to understand the economic ramifications of the latest conflict, with oil and natural gas prices remaining volatile amid growing concerns of a wider war in the Middle East. Those elements were key factors behind the energy-driven cost of living crisis that started facing Western economies last year.
Right, yeah, Russia messed all of us up.
Right. And I'm sure that's going to be a thing again. I mean, within the next few
winter's
months,
coming.
She pointed to a big easing in inflation, but appealed for Republicans to fill the void left by the removal of office of House of Representatives Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Oh, that's really wordy there, sense there.
Yep.
In order for greater financial support to flow. We do need to come up with funds both for Israel and for Ukraine. This is a priority, Ms. Yellen said. It's really up to the House to find, seat a speaker, and put us in a position where legislation can be passed. She added, we stand with Israel. America has also made it clear to Israel, we're working very closely with the Israelis, that they have a right to defend themselves.
They don't.
But it's important to try and spare innocent civilian lives to the maximum extent possible.
Which they aren't.
America can certainly afford to stand with Israel and to support Israel's military needs, and we also can and must support Ukraine in its struggle against Russia.
Except you aren't. That's partly why she's talking about the speaker. Because why did the speaker thing happen, Collin? We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Why was
because of
Ukraine funding?
Ukraine.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and then they tried to strike a secret deal, and they were like, no, like, so, and now they're going to try to sneak it in again through Israel. So that's part of it too.
Well,
if they get funding for this.
Right. Well, that's kind of, actually you brought up something that I did want to talk about. That's probably why they want to give a high amount of money combined to Israel and Ukraine. Because depending who the speaker ends up being, well, not even so much the speaker. Republicans may not necessarily are for giving money for Ukraine, but they're definitely going to be for giving money to Israel. So if you lump the two together, and this is, again, an example of a dirty bill, you can't have, even if Ukraine is like, even if Republicans do not want to give money to Ukraine, they are not going to vote against it if it means not giving money to. And we know, at least at this point, almost everyone in office is aligned to support Israel by any means necessary. So,
well, and if you think about it, this is really a war on almost one front. All of these places, right? This is to fight BRICS alliance. This is to fight China, Russia. You know, we talked about last week the was it Kathleen Hicks, right? And like that recent funding for AI developments, right?
Mm-hmm.
They recently, among those same groups, hosted like a tabletop trial of Taiwan, right? And how that would go, right? Didn't go well. Like, China essentially in this war game went nuclear. Like, which is already like the fact that they're claiming China would do that first is, you know, like, but hey, man, they got to protect, like, they're not going to lose. Like, you put them into a war, they're going to try to win. So,
but I think that on our end, serving Israel, I mean, we've been doing that for decades, but it kind of ties into, I think they essentially act as a buffer, especially if Iran is involved.
And it's a trial. It's a trial round for a lot of our military contracts and a lot of our medical contracts, both of which do a lot of human trialing in Israel. Because you have a bunch of bodies you can just wipe off the planet, apparently. You know,
right? But Israel, the Middle East, serves as a buffer between us and China / Taiwan / Russia.
Well, that's the thing. If you're gonna make now you're gonna make enemies with the entire Muslim community as well as Russia, China, and like a lot of even some of the European powers are going. Like Spain is like, I don't know about this. So we'll see. Ireland's definitely not going to go with you. Like, you know, like I think America thinks it's got a ton of allies that'll go in on this, but I think a lot of people are looking at the field going like, I don't know.
Well, again, the idea of like, and we're seeing this online and even today, for me in DC, that there's a pro-Palestinian protest in the Capitol, at least that was earlier today.
Yeah.
You know, so, and we've been seeing a lot of that, you know, throughout the world, you know, like a lot of these pro-Palestinian protests kind of popping off. So while I would argue that mainstream media is doing its best to give the impression that, at least in the West, that we are in full support of Israel, that's really, I saw that in the, like, you know, DJ Joe Nice was there. I think he's in town. I should try and see if I can hook up with him depending on how long he's here.
Yeah.
But like the regular schmegular people like are not, I think, see through the bullshit and are essentially, and it's kind of proving that mainstream media, I think, at least from what I've been seeing, is kind of losing the war on, you know, having us feel like the warm and fuzzies for Israel.
Yeah.
Especially given what we've been seeing online.
Regular schmegular seems anti-Semitic, Collin. You got to be careful. You know?
Okay.
Schmegular is definitely Yiddish.
Okay.
But even English schmegular? Schmegular?
Yeah.
Anyway.
But anyway, let's keep going. So there is no humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
Oh,
really? So,
we can't keep going off that. Like, what?
But we're giving money to them, though.
Yes,
right.
But also,
so why are we giving money?
No food, open air prison, no electricity, no water, no internet. Like anywhere else, that's considered a humanitarian crisis. Like if a storm did any of those things, that would be considered like, you know, anyway, it's like every sentence we have to stop on this crap. It's the worst. Continue.
Ms. Yellen remarks followed her visit to the IMF World Bank conference in Morocco last week, when the much discussed topic was the potential ramifications of the Israel-Hamas conflict.
Again,
Iran has warned Israel against a full-scale ground operation in Gaza in response to the Hamas incursion over a week ago.
Who made Hamas again? Who did that? Who made Hamas?
The Israeli government.
Yes, and us.
Okay.
They also helped make ISIS, but whatever. Foreign
Minister Hussein Amir
Abdullahian
said his country could not remain an observer in that event. If the Zionist aggressions do not stop, the hands of all parties in the region are on the trigger, he said. When asked if there was more that the U.S. Treasury could do to pressure Iran from not getting involved in the war, Ms. Yellen responded, I know that there are diplomatic conversations that are taking place, but I'm not going to go into the details about them.
They're in Canada. My girlfriend's from Canada. That's what that sounds like. You wouldn't know her. She doesn't go here.
So we're giving this money, and now, according to what we heard today, allegedly giving humanitarian aid to Gaza. But as Brett Wilkins reports, and this was a big story that came out yesterday, that as protests erupt, as Israel-Palestine trade blame after Gaza hospital strikes kills hundreds. The death toll right now is more than 500, but we believe that the number will reach to more than 1,000, said one Gaza medical doctor.
And I'm sure Collin could have put lots of video here, seeing as how they did a press conference in front of, but we literally can play 0 of them because they are full of dead babies and dead people in the background and really horrific depictions.
I mean, for me, I wasn't going to play that for myself anyway, but yeah, YouTube will.
There was one I saw of one of the doctors speaking, and it was just heartbreaking. Like, it was awful. He was like, dead bodies were piled up in an explosion. Like, it was bad. Like, I feel like it's important people to like witness, like, because media is not going to show you that kind of stuff. Similarly to how like Vietnam War era photography and film were equally as important to like see, like that woman classically with her burned body, like that's important for people to like witness. Like, anyway, continue. Not to get too.
Authorities in Gaza said Tuesday night that an Israeli Defense Forces airstrike on a hospital holding thousands of patients, staff, and people seeking shelter from Israel's relentless bombardment killed at least 500 civilians, while IDF officials blamed the deaths on a botched Islamic Jihad rocket attack.
Which we know is not the case.
Right. Photos and videos from Al-Ali Hospital in Gaza City posted on social media showed bodies and body parts scattered about in the fiery aftermath of the blast. One video shared by senior Al Jazeera journalist Ali Shaham reportedly shows the moment when a rocket or missile strikes the Anglican-run hospital, causing a massive earth-shaking explosion.
A hospital, mind you, that existed before Israel.
Right. Gone. The death toll right now is more than 500, but we believe that number to more than 1,000. Zihad Shadaya, a medical doctor and resident of Gaza, told Al Jazeera, "It is a massacre." Ghassan Abdul Sittah, a physician with the international charity Doctors Without Borders, said on social media.
This is the guy I saw where he was saying we were operating in the hospital. There was a strong explosion and the ceiling fell in the operating room. This is a massacre. Dude was a reconstructive surgeon. Like,
Right.
and they immediately started like resuscitation attempts. Like,
yeah.
You know. So
MSF said that nothing justifies the shocking attack on the hospital and its many patients and health workers, as well as the people who sought shelter there. Hospitals are not a target. This bloodshed must stop. Enough is enough, the group added. Many Gazans had fled to the hospital after Israeli authorities ordered 1.1 million Palestinians to flee for their lives on an alleged war crime compared to the Nakba ethnic cleansing of Arabs from Palestine during the establishment of the modern state of Israel, amid a bombing campaign that has killed more than 3,500 people, including over 1,000 children since October 7th.
Yeah.
What's happened is terrible because those people, all of them are civilians. They fled their homes and reached a place that they believed was safe, a hospital, which according to international law is a safe place, Shehada said. People left their homes thinking they were more dangerous, and they moved to our schools and hospitals to be safe. And in 1 minute, all of them have been killed at a hospital.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally war crime stuff.
Right.
Andy just sent me a thing that Israel's banning Al Jazeera as well.
Of course, they are.
Yeah.
Well, I'll imagine they're banning anything that puts them in a not so good light, anyhow.
Yeah.
So,
you know,
returning
free
to the
speech, though,
far-right
so.
government. Yeah. Returning to the far-right government of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, Mustafa Bajgoti, head of the Palestinian National Initiative Party, told Al Jazeera that what happened is nothing but a deliberate war crime by the war criminal Netanyahu and his war cabinet. These people have committed another massacre against the Palestinian people, he continued. They attacked a hospital. This is not only acceptable, it's so savage. Attacking a hospital where people are taking refuge from the places that were bombarded by Israelis and forced to leave, trying to find some safe patches in the hospital or near the hospital. This means there are no safe places for Palestinians. This was a genocide committed in front of the whole world in a place that should be safe, he added.
And they warned us. They warned us we were going to do it.
Right.
Like,
so,
and then they're trying to claim that it's jihadis. Like, fuck off. Like, anyway, this racist shit.
Speaking of, right. So this was a tweet that I think this is Netanyahu.
Well, Prime Minister of Israel,
out,
yeah.
Yeah, but deleted because he said, this is a struggle between the children of light and the children of darkness, between humanity and the law of the jungle.
Here, I'll translate. This is a struggle between the white people and the darkies, between humanitarians. Like, that's literally.
I mean, you could read it in that way, and that could relate to, well,
yeah,
for me, a black person, but
right.
But basically any melanated people you can,
yeah, like literally the law of the jungle. Like, you're literally saying these are like, you might as well call them monkeys. You might as well,
right.
Like, that's what you're saying. Like,
right.
I mean, which we've seen Israelis say you are less than monkeys, even. So,
right,
like
subhuman, like
right,
animals, right. Israelis have said that about.
Yes,
right.
Cockroaches to be exterminated. Like, where have we heard those before?
Right. You'll have to zoom in for this.
Yeah, I got you.
So this was a tweet. It's in Hebrew, but here's the translation right here. I'm not going to read all of it. If you scroll down for me a bit. So actually go up. So this was written by IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari, informed this morning, according to him, that there may be a small number of terrorists hiding in Israeli territory, but the assessment is that these are individuals. Hagari added that there were no additional infiltrations by terrorists during the night, through the fence, and the IDF has no information about a tunnel penetrating the country's territories.
That would have just been flooded. They had flooding. Like, people forget that they'd be flooded tunnels right now if there were any. So
he also said that the army drops hundreds of tons of bombs in attacks in the Gaza Strip, and explained that the emphasis is on damage and non-accuracy. Right?
Yeah, carpet bombing.
Yeah, just
indiscriminate.
Indiscriminate, yeah.
Yeah.
According to him, we're taking a toll on every Hamas position and structure, dozens of every pilot in every Air Force strike. Among other things, the IDF attacked a weapons warehouse located in a mosque and homes of activists.
Yeah, this is called shock and awe. It's completely overkill whatever you're trying to kill to hopefully strike fear in the terrorist group. Like, except that's not what it does. Like, it just emblazons those people because, like, you're killing their family members and, like, indiscriminately. Like, so the ones that survive will be extremely resistant to you. So, but yeah.
So this is Dr. Tedros, who tweeted,
the WHO,
World Health Organization, strongly condemns the attack on the Al-Hali Arab Hospital in North Gaza. Early reports indicate hundreds of deaths and injuries. We call for the immediate protection of civilians and healthcare, and for the evacuation orders to be reversed. Hashtag not a target.
Meanwhile, the WHO putting up Israeli flag. So, you know, bit of mixed messaging.
So, Hamas, which governs Gaza and whose fighters led the surprise attack, killed more than 1,400 civilians and soldiers, called the hospital attack a crime of genocide.
Now, pause.
The hospital massacre.
Apparently, they claim they were going to get to it later, but they claim that they weren't targeting civilians. Hamas.
Right.
So, you know, that's a bit of you know, it also Hamas created by Israel to push back against the Fatah and the PLO. Like, it was a Israeli power grab.
Yeah.
They wanted religious fundamental Muslim religion to not be secular, lefty, whatever, you know. So it's that sort of problem, similar to how we did Al Qaeda, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep.
Anyway, the hospital massacre confirms the enemy's brutality and the extent of this feeling of defeat, said Hamas leader Ismaili Haniyeh, who called the attack a new turning point. The IDF blamed a failed Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket for the blast. From an analysis of the IDF's operational systems, an enemy rocket barrage was carried out towards Israel, which passed in the vicinity of the hospital when it was hit, the IDF claimed. However, critics noted that the IDF is known to deny and accept responsibility for its deadly attacks on Palestinian civilians, including Palestinian American Al Jazeera Shireen
Abu Akleh. Yep. Which this is a tactic they use literally all the time. Like, it's literally blame. You would have heard them using those rockets, which no one did. The footage shows that it didn't come from anywhere in a Gaza-controlled area, if we want to go that far. And they've even put out edited footage to, like, agree to their thing, which that had to be debunked and called out. So, and it's just the idiots who went along with this is like, oh, no, it was actually Hamas. No, it fucking wasn't. Like, Hamas doesn't carry the capabilities to level a fucking hospital. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. Like, guess who does?
Israel.
Right? Like, oh, it's ours. It's our stuff. We have the capability. They're borrowing it. Like, you know, like they wouldn't have an Iron Dome without us. They wouldn't have any of that shit. It's like Ukraine. They wouldn't have tanks. Like, we're giving them those things. So, yeah, wild.
Others pointed out that the Israeli forces have already bombed Al Hospital during the current war on Gaza. On Sunday, Archbishop of Canterbury Justin Welby said that 4 Al-Ali staff members were injured by Israeli rocket fire during a Saturday night attack. The evil and barbaric terror attacks on Israelis by Hamas were a blasphemous outrage, Welby said. But the citizens of Gaza are not responsible for the crimes of Hamas. Okay. The hospital attack sparked large protests in the illegally occupied West Bank, as well as in cities throughout the Middle East and around the world. Demonstrations took place on Tuesday night in Iran, Lebanon, Jordan, Morocco, Turkey, Syria, Tunisia, and elsewhere.
Speaking of which,
Meanwhile,
Syria's been being attacked by Israel for like a decade now. So,
yes.
Or more. You know.
Meanwhile, Philippe Lazzarini, head of the United States and World's Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, said at least 6 civilians were killed Monday afternoon when one of the agency schools being used as a shelter in the Al-Maghazi refugee camp was bombed.
Yep.
Dozens were injured, including NURWA staff, and severe structural damage was caused to the school, Lazzarini said. The numbers are likely to be higher. This is outrageous, and it again shows a flagrant disregard for the lives of civilians. At least 4,000 people have taken refuge in the UNRWA school turned shelter, he added. They had and still have nowhere else to go. No place is safe in Gaza anymore, not even UNRWA facilities. Israel has attacked UN schools in previous assaults on Gaza and blamed it on Palestinian militants.
No, why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? Right.
The hospital and school attacks occurred on the eve of a trip to Israel by U.S. President Joe Biden. The president has declared his rock-solid and unwavering support for Israel, which receives nearly $4 billion in annual U.S. military aid.
And you ain't black.
Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas called for 3 days of mourning for victims of the hospital attack and canceled a meeting with Biden planned for Wednesday, according to NPR.
Of course.
In the wake of the hospital attack, Russia and the Russian Arab Emirates called for an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council this morning. On Tuesday, the Security Council rejected, actually, we're going to get into this in a minute. The Security Council rejected a Russian draft resolution calling for a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. The U.S., United Kingdom, France and Japan voted against the resolution. So when Brett, shout out to Brett, read that, I was like, oh, please tell me more, because we're not going to hear this anywhere else.
No, I saw the vote.
So
everyone stuck up their hands. I mean, they raised their hand to shout that resolution, same difference. In this case.
So this is from UN News. So this is the last part of this segment. But Security Council rejects Russian resolution on Gaza. The Russian-led draft resolution. So those who wrote this resolution.
Yes. China, Gabon, Mozambique, Russia, and the UAE.
Yep. And 4 against
France, Japan, UK, US.
With stiff absent nations.
These
Albania,
are the ones.
Brazil.
These are the ones. Pay attention to these ones. Pay attention. Right. Albania, Brazil, which we've talked about before.
Ecuador,
like Ghana,
Malta, and Switzerland.
Fucking Switzerland. Fuck you. with your fucking neutral bullshit. We're neutral. No, you're not. Like, you're not.
Members were divided over the lack of specific condemnation of extremist group Hamas.
We're going to get that in the next segment.
Current escalation of violence, sending hundreds of fighters to carry out massacres in settlements near to the Gaza Strip on the 7th of October. For the Council to adopt a resolution, the proposal must receive at least 9 votes in favor, with none of its 5 permanent members opposing or casting a veto. The draft text had called for a humanitarian ceasefire, release of all hostages, aid access, and safe evacuation of civilians.
Collin, someone on Twitter, and it might have been Chris. I think it was Chris Legion talking about why are people asking for a ceasefire? This isn't like a war. This is a genocide. One group has all the weapons and armaments and bombs. Like tell them it's like they're making this a unified. Oh, both people have to stop the violence. No,
right.
One group defending itself. The other group is being offensive. Both, not only in Palestine, but also Syria, Egypt. Like, you know, it's anyway. Continue.
Vasily Nebenzia, permanent representative of Russia to the UN, expressed regret over the Security Council's failure to adopt a resolution blaming the selfish intention of the Western Bloc. Yep.
Selfish intention, yeah.
He said that the Western countries' delegations basically stomped on global hopes for the Council to put an end to violence. Ambassador Nebenzia noted that the vote revealed countries in support of ending the violence and providing humanitarian aid, and those blocking a unified message for purely selfish and political interests. Say Zionists. Like, no one says that, and it's like,
well, it's also more than just Zionism. In this case, like it is selfish and political interest, but also Zionism part of that. But it's also political. Like, look, this is resources, man. Gaza controls a lot of oil. Like, you know, it's also a big region thing, right? Like, if Israel holds that area, that's our like ally in the region. If we lose that, we get no footholds, we get no bases, we get no, you know.
Right, but how many people know that though?
Not many.
Like, that's right, but that's the issue. That's the thing that people like, you know, and we always say here, if the West generally, wants a country so bad, there is often a natural resource that it wants.
Right.
So
this is all resource battles.
Right. So,
just like World War II was, just like every war is. Like, it's always money, resources. Like, you think we wanted all those islands in Japan just because they looked pretty? Like, you know what I mean? The South Pacific had a resource we wanted. You know, like, we were willing to put tons of Marines on the ground to get it. And boots on the ground have been talked about here too. So, you know,
But we are extremely concerned by the unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza and the very high risk of the conflict spreading, he said. Go. Linda Thomas Greenfield, permanent representative of the U.S., said that her country, remember, this is a Black woman, so this I take strong offense to, like, you know, said that her country could not support the Russian draft resolution as it ignored Hamas terrorism and dishonored victims. By failing to condemn Hamas, Russia is giving cover to a terrorist group that brutalizes innocent civilians. It is outrageous, hypocritical, and indefensible, she said. Again, this is a Black woman going to bat for the
colonizers.
But right, but Black person in power, yay!
Yay, girl boss.
by failing to Yeah, I read that. Ambassador Thomas Greenfield condemned Hamas for killing civilians, taking hostages, including American citizens, and slaughtering families, and that Hamas's actions led to the dire humanitarian crisis facing the people of Gaza.
Fuck you. Fuck you.
We cannot allow this council to unfairly shift the blame to Israel. Yes, we can. And excuse Hamas for its decades of cruelty, she said. No,
decades of cruelty? Fuck you. Fuck you so much. What are you talking about? What world do you live on? Decades? You mean like since 1948? You mean that? I can't even, Collin. I can't even. I'm gonna need a fucking pumpkin spice latte to throw this bitch. I can't even right now. All right, like,
which are in season.
Yes. Yeah.
Rahad Mansour, permanent observer of the Observer State of Palestine to UN, urged the Security Council to be guided by the principles of international law. With no one has been like, no one has been doing it. So
right.
Doesn't
they
matter.
Don't care.
Do not send the signals that Palestinian lives do not matter. Do not dare say Israel is not responsible for the bombs it is dropping on their heads, he said. Mr. Mansour noted that what is happening in Gaza is not a military operation, but a full-scale assault against his people and a massacre against innocent civilians. Nowhere is safe in Gaza. Families embrace every night, not knowing if it's for the last time, he said. Jihad Iran, permanent representative to Israel to the UN, said that the Security Council stood at one of the most pivotal moments in its history, a moment of truth, which will tell humanity if its very existence holds legit. What does that mean? Which will tell
stood at one of the most pivotal moments of truth to tell humanity if its very existence holds. It's like we're at a pivotal moment in history, and our decisions. It's just like Iraq War virtue signaling crap. It's like that's what that is. Like it's we have to stand with the victims of the terrorism and yada yada bullshit. You know, we need humanity to win the day. Okay. You mean the people who are doing humanitarian crimes are the humanitarian ones? It's just deliberate projection. So
he said that every council member should understand Hamas is driven by ideology no different from Nazis.
More projection
in their charter that called for obliterating Israel. Hamas is not a political organization; it's a terror organization.
Except pause. Obliterating Israel. I have heard more calls from Israelis to obliterate Palestine in the last month than I've ever heard any Palestinian say they want to eliminate Israel. Far more. Like by 1,000. Like I've heard death to Palestinians. I've heard wipe them off the planet. I've heard pretty much everything akin to turn the sand to glass. I've heard that these people are subhuman. I've heard that these people are, causing all our problems in the world, and we should put them in gas chambers, practically. Like this is straight projection. Like on a fucking national scale. So
Ambassador Erhan called on the council to designate Hamas as a terrorist organization and to hold it fully and solely accountable for the situation in Gaza. So, in other words, gives the West an excuse to blow shit up. That's
well, and more than that, it also, we've talked about this, and we'll get into this in a bit. Why this is, if you deem it a terrorist organization, then everyone gets the right to spy on you if you support them. In any capacity. That's the other thing. You're then a terrorist if you are sympathetic to the Palestinian cause because the Palestinians are sympathetic to Hamas. That's what that's going to turn into. So it's Patriot Act 2.0.
He also called on the council to fully support Israel's right to defend itself and to immediately and unconditionally demand the release of all hostages.
This is like a dude coming into your fucking house with a gun, and then someone coming in with him going like, hey, he's got a right to defend himself if you get near him. Like, bro, it's my house. Like, you're intruding on me. You know? Dude, this fucking shit upsets me so much.
Yeah, but so as I said, you know what I think what is encouraging is that I don't think mainstream media is necessarily winning the narrative that Israel. I think the idea that people not fighting, but at least debating on how right Israel is, I think just kind of shows, because I feel like if this were even maybe 4 years ago, that wouldn't necessarily be the case. But I think now, given people are educating themselves, more Palestinian activists have been speaking out more, and more people are kind of understanding the history a little bit more.
Yeah.
That Israel, but that Israel is kind of the idea of Israel and not necessarily being held to account of the war crimes.
Yeah, they think they're immune. And they are immune right now. Like, literally, you had how many different major powers of the country go, no, it's okay. They have the right to genocide. Like, what? No, they fucking don't. Like, they don't have the right to exist, in my opinion. The country of Israel, there's no... For me, there's no issue that, like, they need to be a thing. Same for the Vatican. I don't think it needs to exist as a country either. Like, why?
No.
You don't need a religious state. I think everyone could understand that our rules, the ones we wrote for our country, make sure that we don't have that, and we still get that problem, you know, with the evangelical crowd. So, to me, this is very easily the problem. You have a group of people who feel like they have some manifest fucking destiny to wipe these people off the fucking planet. It's an atrocity that should be fucking dealt with, but there's no adults in the room, Collin. So
no,
you know,
yeah, and like I said, just for me reporting on this, will likely be demonetized.
Oh yeah, probably that's my fault. So, I probably just got us demonetized.
So feel free, if you want to support us before we do, feel free to give us anything if you can.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, but like I said, but
I know there's opinions on this, so you know, leave them down there in the comment section. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. If you're watching this as a clip, we appreciate you. But anyway, you ready for our next one, Collin?
Sure.
Okay. So it's more of the same, which we talked about in our last article, about, you know, this condemnation, right? That these countries found it important that Russia and them condemn the acts of Hamas, right? Well, Craig Murray, you know him, you love him, over at Consortium on this one, writes about this condemnation. The political class internationally, with one voice, put out statements supporting Israel's right to self-defense, a right they grant to the oppressor, but deny to the oppressed. So, there have been decades of photos of dead Palestinian women and children and kids being beaten, humiliated, and imprisoned by Israeli soldiers. The historic killing rate in this conflict has been fairly consistent at about 40 to 1. Okay? None of this ever caused more than a raised eyebrow and a mid-tutting from the Western liberal establishment. I can't recall camera crews ever pursuing any Zionist politicians down the street demanding that they use the word condemn of the latest Israeli atrocity. The paroxysm of hatred and continue.
Although I will say that changing, but not by mainstream media. By
No,
normal people.
it is happening. Jose Vega did it recently. So the paroxysm of hated in the political and media class unleashed by a single day of the boot being on the other foot is instructive. It is particularly instructive in the near complete unanimity. What percentage of discussion on broadcast TV or radio have you heard this last 48 hours given over to Palestinian or pro-Palestinian voices? A commercial came on today for like 60 minutes, all of it pro-Israeli. Not one single talk of Palestinian like issues, which have been around for decades. Like, this is the thing. There's history here. People forget. So, Murray continues, yet it is very plain from social media that the public is by no means as unanimous in their support of Israel as are the political and media class, but the public are not bought and paid for. Asymmetric warfare tends to be vile. Oppressed and colonized people don't have the luxury of lining up soldiers in neatly pressed uniforms and polished boots to face off against the opposing army in an equality of arms. So this is in Boston, Great Barrington, Massachusetts, which is near there, right? October 10th, I think Savvy was over here or close to it.
No, I think that's what I believe.
Yep, with the when people are occupied, resistance is justified quote, which look out for t-shirts coming soon from us. But a colonized and oppressed people tends, given the chance, to mirror the atrocities perpetrated on them by their oppressor. That goes with any trauma, by the way. Let's talk about that, boys and girls. Why do you think the children of alcoholics become alcoholics? Why do you think that is? Okay? So this is, of course, feeds in always to the propaganda of the imperialist. A paroxysm of resistance by the oppressed always ends up portrayed by the imperialist as evidence of the bestiality of the colonized people and in itself justifying the civilizing mission of the colonizer. Thus, the Indian Mutiny became a Victorian tale of rape and murder of British women and the Black Hole of Calcutta, right? Thus, the Mau Mau were evil butchers and the IRA were terrorists, which is the modern term of art for those resisting evil and foreign rule. I see no lies there, Care Bear.
I see no lies either.
The Israeli ambassador to the UN on Monday described the Hamas fighters as animal-like. This, of course, not true. They are people, but people who have been crazed by unbearable levels of injustice and oppression. I'm extremely sorry for all those who die, as in all wars. I'm sorry even for the deaths of individual Israeli soldiers, and more so for all the innocents who died and are now dying. But I will not condemn Hamas. This is an editor's note here. Hamas attacked military bases and soldiers, both legitimate targets, but also targeted civilians, which they deny, consortium, which is against international humanitarian law. Right? So, yeah. I also, little edit on this paragraph. Every Israeli citizen is also made to do what, Collin? So,
they're made to the army.
Yes. Yeah, everyone has to be in the military to be there, pretty much. So that's part of it. Here we have Jeremy Corbyn. I guess what they're going to ask him, Collin. Let's play.
Yesterday, I sent out a statement calling for a ceasefire, calling for peace, and
again,
calling for an
ceasefire
end to the occupation of Palestine, which, of course, is fundamentally the background to the whole issue. Obviously, all attacks are wrong.
But do you condemn Hamas?
I think I've made my point.
Well, no, you haven't quite made the point. Lots of people.
Wait a minute. You love interrupting people when they're trying to answer a question, don't you? Now, to say it for the third time, then, yesterday I sent out a statement which made it very clear I wanted peace, I wanted a ceasefire, and I wanted a process which ended the Israeli occupation of Palestine, which is fundamental to it. I don't support any attacks, therefore I criticise them all, and that, I think, is the end of the matter. Thank you.
So, yes or no, you condemn these attacks, Corbyn?
still trying. This to me is like, you got to say it. It's radical Islamic terrorists. That's exactly what this is.
Right.
Right. So, yeah.
Honestly,
Yesterday,
but I think you brought up a good point. The idea of a ceasefire is very misleading because it gives the impression that it's two
sides,
equal fighting forces going at it, and it's not the case.
No,
the oppressed versus the oppressor.
Yep.
Like it's the abused versus the abuser. So
Mm-hmm.
the abuser has to be the one to get the fuck out.
Right.
Not the abused.
Right. It's all, can't we just get along? It's like, no, the motherfucker hit me. Like, you know, I'm gonna beat this dude's ass real quick. Hold on. Like, anyway, so this is ambassador to Palestine, I think to UK. And Hotspot over here is gonna give us some of this nice bean footage here. So
you just condemned Israel for killing civilians, and you won't condemn Hamas for killing civilians.
How many times you have interviewed Israeli officials, Louise? Hundreds of times. Hundreds of times. How many times Israel have committed crimes right live on your own cameras? Do you start by asking them to condemn themselves? Have you? You don't. You don't. No, I'll answer that question. You don't. You know why I refuse to answer this question? Because I refuse the premise of it. Because at the very heart of it is misrepresentation of the whole thing. Because it's the Palestinians that are always expected to condemn themselves. I mean, come on, This is a political conflict. We have been denied our rights for a long time. So this is the wrong starting point. The right starting point is to focus on the root causes, is to try and get out of this extreme dark tunnel, as opposed to this business by BBC and the mainstream media for 75 years. You bring us here whenever there are Israelis who are. Did you bring me here when many Palestinians in the West Bank, more than 200 over the last few months? Do you invite me when there is such Israeli provocations in Jerusalem and elsewhere? Because what Israelis have seen, which we started by saying tragic, the last 48 hours, the Palestinians see every day for the last 50 years. You know the situation in Gaza, you've just described it. This is the biggest open-air prison.
I mean,
it's interesting he said this. Actually, I was having a conversation actually with Nuno online today because we were talking about, actually, funny enough, Cornel West. And he brought up something that made me think of this in terms of, you know, Cornell's past statements regarding, you know, this issue, because he essentially both sides it.
Yeah, and he's still doing that.
Right. And just and Nuno is of Arab descent.
Yeah.
So he felt in a way betrayed by how Dr. West both sides the issue, given Dr. West's
previous
statements on.
Well, that's before he was a politician. You know, now he's running. So it's like you gotta. I gotta play both sides, and I can't piss off the people and yada yada.
But I thought about it, and what I share with Nuno today, it kind of makes sense for West to kind of both sides it in a way. Hear me out, and I kind of explain why. Like, especially in the church, especially within the Black church, this is what I notice. Like, and you can kind of argue this kind of stems from slavery. It's the idea of the oppressed almost has to suffer through the abuse. It's almost like
turn the other cheek,
like turn the other cheek, forgive your oppressors, all that kind of stuff. So it kind of gives the idea of this more passive mentality of like, oh, if you just endure this abuse, you'll get your riches in heaven type of thing.
Yeah,
like,
when you die.
It's not necessarily right. It's not necessarily the militant response that someone like Fred Hampton was calling for.
Right.
That's something that Malcolm X was calling for. That's something like Kwame Ture was calling for. It's not like
there's no There's no calls for drums and trumpets to tear down walls.
Right.
There's no,
which,
and
look, and I think it's fair to say this for Cornel West. I've not known him to be that.
Well, from the evangelical perspective, there's a part of that here, especially with Christian evangelicals, where they want Israelis to keep control of Jerusalem so that Jesus can come back and the end times can start. This is
right, but it's also
part
interesting,
of it.
but it's almost kind of like when the abused or when the oppressed strike back, like we see this with women all the time. Like when women strike back against their abusers, they're often considered in the wrong, and they get the highest degree of the punishment
scrutiny,
versus of scrutiny. So you can kind of play this out in terms of, I think, really the human condition, that the moment that the oppressed strike back, it's almost because what the hell are you doing? It's almost like you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to just kind of grin and bear it.
Like you're not supposed to do that in public. Like it's that, like, there's shame attached to that, which yeah. So
yeah,
this guy's going to speak a little bit to it. I know you caught a lot of this interview. It's like 22 minutes of gold. But I brought a little bit of it that pertains here.
The thing is, this is the problem. Israel always victimizes itself, and I have never seen a victim putting their oppressor under siege and bombing them 24/7. Israel wants you to believe that they are the victim. Dealing with Israel is so difficult. It's like being in a relationship with a narcissistic psychopath. He fucks you up, and then he makes you think it's your fault.
All right,
you look at Israel as Superman, but they're really Homelander. Wallahi, they are like they are shooting fish in a barrel, and they are annoyed with the splashes.
Bassem, I want to say two things. One, if you could just slightly manage your language. We are uncensored, but
the thing is, this is the problem. Israel always victimizes itself, and I have never seen a victim put.
Yeah. So. I mean, couldn't agree.
So basically what I said, it's the idea of like, the oppressed strikes back, and then the oppressor is like, oh, what the fuck? And it's like, oh, and then they turn into victim mode. It's like, oh, look at this person, like what they did to me, when it's the oppressed that should be the one that should have the most tending to. And so right now, that's really the Palestinians. Now, as people are saying, I don't necessarily agree with the tactics that Hamas did, and I'll just say this here, but I understand it in terms of the oppression that the Palestinians have faced, and they've tried the peaceful route before, and that's what no one talks about. Like, they've tried before.
They've murdered protesters along the fence for protesting. Children. Like,
so,
what are they supposed to do?
Right. I played a clip of Quiet 2, I think it was last week, with Pasta.
Yeah.
And like, where Kwame Ture asked a person sitting in the audience, if you're a slave and I'm the slave owner, and the only way to get your freedom is by shooting me, would you do it? And I'm sure most of people would say yes. So, it's just the idea of like, people think that revolutions have to be clean and like there has to be talking and like negotiation. Like, look at this country. Like, America did not get its independence by talking, right?
No.
America got independence by bloodshed. And that's something that people like, that's in our history books, but that's seemingly because, like the difference is, I think because everyone involved generally was white, that was okay. But to be damned if people who are more melanated actually strike back against their oppressors due to the resources that they're trying to steal from us, then we're the problem.
Right.
But yeah, as I said, I think a lot of people are kind of wising up to that, because I think especially if you are a person of color, you kind of relate to that experience. And I think almost in a way, that's why I think, and I don't want to say, look, I have nothing against Jewish people. Like, there's a difference between being Jewish and being a Zionist. Let's make that very clear. Like,
and they've locked being Jewish to being Israeli somehow, which is not the case either.
Right. Which is not the case, which is almost funny to see the struggle.
Yeah.
That some Jewish people are kind of making or trying to justify the actions of Israelis, when to me that's not one and the same.
No.
Like,
well, and
so
here's Angela, one of your favorites. Pretty much speaking to the same thing. Yep. Yep. I feel you on that. All that fucking Afro glow seeped in over time. Don't worry about it. We're working on it. You can come back, Angela. It's okay.
Confrontation, violence.
Oh, is that the question you were asking?
Yeah.
See, that's another thing. When you talk about a revolution, most people think violence, without realizing that the real content of any kind of revolutionary thrust lies in the principles and the goals that you're striving for, not in the way you reach them. On the other hand, because of the way this society is organized, because of the violence that exists on the surface everywhere, you have to expect that there are going to be such explosions. You have to expect things like that as reactions. If you are a black person and live in the black community all your life and walk out on the street every day seeing white policemen surrounding you, when I was living in Los Angeles, for instance, long before the situation in LA ever occurred, I was constantly stopped. No, the police didn't know who I was, but I was a black woman, and I had a natural, and they, I suppose, thought that I might be a, quote, militant. And when you live under a situation like that constantly, and then you ask me, whether I approve of violence. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense at all.
I mean, parallels are pretty direct here. No.
Yeah.
Guess who trained those police, Angela? I mean, if we want to talk about that, which I know some of you, you, and I do. Like,
I think we should do a segment on that. I don't think we've done it explicitly, but
well, those people know if I get top position, they're in trouble. Is all I'm saying.
I've said this because I think I said this last week, that there have been so many people on ADOS or FBAs were like, oh, we should have nothing to do with anything that's going on in Palestine. That has nothing to do with us.
Yeah, but the question
is, as I said, it has plenty to do with you if you're getting beat up by the cops, because those motherfuckers are being trained by Israelis.
Yes. Yeah.
So it does direct to you at the end of the day. So you need to be paying attention.
And Brazilians, which guess who's helping the Israelis out right now? I don't know. Some of the fascist, remember the fascist groups in Brazil that were there not that long ago? And then supposedly Lula fixed all that, but then he's still kind of doing a lot of the same thing.
Right.
That thing. I'm looking at you, Gracies. Come at me. Like, I know you got some. More than happy to try that out. Like, for this, I do not even, Craig Murray continues, for this, I do not even need to delve into the backstory of Hamas' initial sponsoring by Israel to split Fatah and PLO. They have grown well past that. I do not condemn Hamas because the resistance of the Palestinian people is a reflex response to their slow genocide. Yet it is what is this word, Craig Murray? Inchoate? In Cahote? In Chote? Like, what is that, French? In Shawat and violent response. Is this a typo or am I dumb? Like, what happened? It's probably the latter. Of course, I wish it did not harm innocent victims. The people I do condemn are the political class internationally who, with one voice, put out statements supporting Israel's right to self-defense, a right they grant to the oppressor but deny to the oppressed. Those are the people who need to be condemned. So
the word is I think it's inchoate.
Inchoate? Okay. Rick Solis says that ain't a word. Well, ain't a word, but we still use that. So
I mean, it is a word.
It is.
It's
I love using ain't. It's the best.
So it basically means rudimentary,
Gotcha.
or in a law, if you're thinking of it, law, anticipating or predatory to a further criminal act.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Just begun and so not fully formed or developed. Gotcha. So consortium decided to put this little editor's note here. Hamas cannot be condemned in isolation. Israel's ongoing far-reaching targeting of civilians must at the same time be condemned. Hamas's attacks, though illegal in that they targeted civilians, which we're going to get to, in fact, you are going to get to in a second, must be seen in the context of more than 50 years of internationally recognized occupation and routine murder of Palestinian civilians. Armed resistance is legal under occupation. Intentionally killing civilians is not. Again, we're going to get to that. Human Rights Watch and UN reports, which have been harsh on Israel's attacks on Gaza in the past, have also correctly condemned Hamas firing rockets toward populated areas, but made it clear these infractions were fewer in number and scope than Israel's. Okay, so this is the UN, right? Though Hamas attacks on civilians this time were substantially greater than in the past, so too it appears is Israel's response, which is, again, the UN. In this video released on Twitter, Hamas spokesmen deny intentionally targeting civilians, saying those who died were caught in crossfire. So they're denying that that's what happened. Which, you know, one could argue, you know. So that was that article by Craig Murray. And, you know, when you do these sorts of things, the world is unhappy with you, apparently. So, friend of the show, Kate Clarenberg, former ambassador and Assange advocate Craig Murray, detained under UK terror laws. We've covered before how they tried to track this guy down, showing up at his house when he wasn't there. Go check out that. Like the Great Escape, or I forget what I called it. Something like that, which Craig was amused by. Shout out to you, Craig, if you're watching, which I hope you are, because I'm going to send it to you. But on the morning of October 16th, counter-terrorist police in Glasgow airport detained journalist, whistleblower, human rights campaigner, and former British diplomat Craig Murray upon his return from Iceland. After grilling him intensely about his political beliefs, officers seized Murray's phone and laptop, which Craig, bro, Glasgow, you had Glaswegians grill you? Bro, that's a hard grill. Okay, Glaswegians are a fucking hard accent to deal with, homie, coming from Iceland. Like, that shit's barely English. So, fucking, that's rough. Murray, a proud Scottish nationalist, flew back to Glasgow after several days in Reykjavik. That seems like the Scottish spelling of it anyway. When he attended a popular Palestinian solidarity event and also met with high-ranking representatives of the Assange campaign, which raises awareness about the plight of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Once his travel documents were processed at passport control, the officer informed him he would be detained for questioning. Then they led him to a small back room to be grilled by three nameless British counter-terrorist agents. Murray told the Grey Zone that British police warned him he would be committing a criminal offense and would be prosecuted if he refused to answer questions. Collin, we just did this story not that long ago called Phantom Parrot. You remember this story?
Yes, sir.
So this is what that does.
Yeah.
So this is under Section 7, right? Which is their version of the Patriot Act, which is why they're wanting Hamas to be ruled terrorist groups. Yes, that so they can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
So, if you refuse to answer questions, answered untruthfully, deliberately withheld information, or what, Collin? Refused to provide passcodes for his electronic devices. Okay? Which we know once they get those devices, they download and copy all of the data.
Right.
So, and they don't need a warrant. They don't need any actual suspectic information. Like, they don't even have to smell weed. They can just search your vehicle. Okay? So, after his phone and laptop were seized for analysis, the interrogation began. First, they grilled me about the private Assange campaign meeting, where he told the Gray Zone, "You might think they would ask who was there, but they didn't." He said, adding, "My guess is they somehow already knew." Instead, all the questions were financial. Okay? Murray says, according to the former British ambassador, officers wanted to know whether I get money for my contributions to the campaign, if I get paid by WikiLeaks, don't extradite Assange, or even Julian's family. The answer each time was no. Murray says, explaining my sources of income and where my money comes from were a particular interest to the officers. The one-time diplomat's popular personal blog was also of interest to the officers. I wonder why, Collin. Who reportedly demanded Murray tell them whether anyone had access to it or could publish content on the platform, and if anyone other than himself authored any of its posts. Okay? Strangely, Murray said he was not asked about a single article published on the website. Equally puzzling, he remarked, were the questions about the Palestine solidarity event he attended. Officers apparently wanted to know why Murray had attended in the first place. A strange question to ask of someone attending a protest, he told the Gray Zone. Nonetheless, he made it clear that he had gone because he was friends with one of the speakers, a former Icelandic interior minister. Police reportedly also demanded details on the content of various speakers, addresses at the event, information which Murray says he could not offer as he doesn't speak Icelandic. When asked if he planned to attend any similar pro-Palestinian events of Britain, he told them, probably. Good for you, Craig. Oh yeah, I'll be there. The weirdest question was, how do I judge whether to share a platform with someone or not? Murray says, adding, I do so based on who's organizing the event. In this particular case, Murray continued, it was the Palestine Solidarity Committee, so I was confident I was in safe hands. Still, it struck the former ambassador as a bizarre line of questioning. My lawyer has never heard of such a question being asked during interrogations before, Murray said, adding that they speculate police have a surveillance photo of me in the proximity of someone they consider a terrorist. I have no idea who that could be, the outspoken human rights campaign admitted. But as he quickly observed, if you attend a rally where 200,000 people are present, you can't know who everyone is. You know, Murray has since consulted with lawyers who informed him that according to Section 7 of the 2000 Terrorism Act, the draconian legislation under which he was subjected to the intensive questioning, he would be legally entitled to consult a lawyer if the interrogation lasted longer than an hour. Guess how long it lasted, Collin? Less than an hour.
More than an hour.
Less than an hour.
Oh, really?
Yes. Because they don't want you calling a lawyer. Because if it did last longer than an hour, they got to tell you. Otherwise, in court, that would be the first thing thrown up. You didn't let him call his lawyer. Like, so, yeah. Fun stuff. Thoughts.
I mean, now that you did Phantom Parrot, because I was just kind of like, what is this?
Nice to see that pay off, right?
No, I have to trust you more because it's just the idea of like, I think just given, or I feel you kind of do that on purpose to kind of make the connection, not necessarily like immediately, but down the road. Which
yeah, like that's my thing is like, hey, pay attention to what they're worried about in the future and like why these are being talked about now. And this is not the first time Phantom 7 has been used, or Section 7, Phantom Parrot stuff. Phantom Parrot's that specific clause in it that allows them to take the data. So that's my point, is that a lot of people miss that part, is that if Craig Murray got his devices taken, all his data was stolen.
Right, but these are like journalists. Like that happens just to regular people, like it may not even to that full degree, but like I've been before I got my before I became an American citizen, so I was on green card status, like when I was living in Boston. I swear to you, there was a period of about maybe 5 years whenever I was traveling out of the country. I would always get the same immigration officer. He didn't remember me for sure, but like I sure remember his ass. And he will always ask me like all these random questions, like what were you doing? How long were you there? Like, dude, it's not your business. But like, I mean, I answered them, but like anyone that they kind of suspect, like they're gonna ask you. So
well, and that's my point, is that if you are a journalist and you're planning to travel, and you need to have a stop in the UK, wipe those phones, wipe them, factory reset, baby. Like, I want no data on that phone when you hand it to them, or your laptop, or whatever. Don't even bring a laptop. What are you doing? Just don't do that. Just bring a phone.
Right.
Like, you don't need, and we've talked about this before about protecting yourself digitally as a journalist, which like you keep those backups somewhere safe and off your main computer, and don't engage in particular places where you think, like always imagine someone is listening and can get the information you're putting out. Just always do that. Like, because they are, and they see everything. They're in every email you've sent. They're in every message you've sent, even on those apps that you think you're safe on. They see those too. So, just saying, P's and Q's, people, watch them. Look at them. They're right here. Those P's and Q's, they're right here. But anyway, you got a story. Speaking of, journalistic information.
Yeah. So this is an article from Alan McLeod, mostly associated with Mint Press, but this is also on SharePost.
Pals with Craig Murray, he is.
Where he talks about how mainstream media is pushing fake Palestine stories. So basically this is what he goes into. So we might as well just get right into it. And I'm sure a lot of you can comment on this as well, and please do. In the comments below, like what false Palestine narratives you've seen online or otherwise. But now for this, I'm probably going to censor myself for certain words because just as a claim here, I don't want us to possibly get dinged on YouTube, so I'm just a little paranoid. So certain words I might censor. But those are, at least if you're watching, you can read the word. So, and some of you might be able to figure out the wording. So just to give you guys a heads up there. But anyway, after Hamas launched a surprise attack on Israel, IDF forces responded with airstrikes, leveling Gazan buildings. The violence so far has claimed the lives of more than 2,500 people. Western media, however, show far more interest and have much greater sympathy with Israeli dead than Palestinian ones, and have played their usual role as unofficial spokespersons for the IDF. One case in point is a claim that during their incursion into southern Israel, Hamas fighters stopped to round up, kill, and starts with M, 40 Israeli babies, be them, and leaving their bodies behind. The extraordinary assertion was originally reported by the Israeli channel. Can you zoom in, please? Just to see.
Yes.
I-24? Yeah, I-24 News, which based it upon anonymous Israeli military sources. Despite offering no proof whatsoever, this highly inflammatory claim about enemy made by an active participant in a conflict was picked up and repeated across the world by a host of media, in the United States by Fox News, CNN, MSN, Business Insider, and the New York Post.
I mean, you name it, they're doing it. I've yet to see one that isn't. So,
meanwhile, the front pages of the UK's largest newspapers were festooned with the story. The press outraged at the atrocity invited their readers to feel the same way. Extraordinary claims should require extraordinary evidence, and a story like this should not have been met with serious skepticism. Should have been met with serious skepticism, given who was making the claim. The first question to any reporter should have asked was, where is the evidence? Given multiple opportunities to stand by it, the IDF continually distanced itself from the claims. Nevertheless, the story was simply too useful not to publish. So as you can see here, these are some of the titles. I'm not going to read them all, but
yeah, people can see them. They can pause and read if they want.
Yep. Media across the Western world were quick to run headlines stirring outrage over the unsubstantiated claims. The D-baby narrative was so popular that even President Biden referenced it, claiming to have seen confirmed images of Hamas killing children.
Come on,
this
man.
Claim, however, was hastily retracted by its handlers at the White House.
Yeah.
Noted that Biden was referencing the I-24 news report.
The orderlies at the nursing facility had to say, no, he didn't really. No, the fucking, you know, he didn't have his stuff stolen by the cleaning lady. Like that's, you know, he didn't see that. That didn't happen.
The story looked even more like a piece of cheap propaganda after it was revealed that the key source for the claim was Israeli soldier David Ben Zion, an extremist settler who had indicted race riots against Palestinians earlier this year, described them as animals with no heart who need to be wiped out. Manipulating the U.S. public into supporting the war by feeding them atrocity propaganda about babies has a long history. In 1990, for instance, a girl purported to be a local nurse was brought before Congress, where she testified that Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein's men had ripped hundreds of Kuwaiti babies from their incubators and left them to die. The story
Kuwaiti
helped lift the
babies
American
in the
public
incubabies
up into a pro-war fervor. It was later revealed that it was a complete hoax dreamed up by public relations. I think a lot of you might know that story.
You remember the public relations firm? Because that's what I forget. Like,
no,
that's an important thing to like know.
If you do know in the comments, but this was but I should have actually got that clip if I thought of it. But I think most of you, if were around this time, or at least are somewhat familiar with the story in dealing with you know, the Gulf
all that was a lie. All the information they had was a lie, which we've covered the failure of imagination line that they've been using amongst this, you know, trying to equate this Hamas attack with their own Israel's 9/11, you know?
Right.
So
another piece of blatantly fake news is the case of Shanti Locke. Locke attended the Supernova Festival ambushed by Hamas. It was widely reported that Hamas M'd her.
Yeah.
Daily Mail, Marca, Yahoo, MTC, Business Insider stripped her and paraded her naked body trophy-like through the streets on the back of a truck. Locke's
Except
case indicted global.
that video was of a Syrian woman that we funded the terrorists that did that. I'm sure it's in this.
Hold on.
Yep.
Locke indicted global anger and calls for an overwhelmingly Israeli military response. There was only one problem. Locke was later confirmed to be alive and in hospital, a fact that suggests the videos of her on the back of a truck were actually images of people saving her life by taking her to seek medical assistance.
Yes.
Few of the outlets irresponsibly published these widely incendiary stories had printed apologies or even retraction. The Los Angeles Times was one exception. After publishing a report claiming that Palestinians had arred Israeli civilians, it later informed readers that such reports have not been substantiated.
Yep.
Few readers, however, see these retractions. Instead, they are left with visceral feelings of anger and disgust towards Hamas, priming them to support Western military action against Palestine or the wider region. In case their audiences did not get the message, op-eds and editorials in major newspapers hammered home this idea. The Wall Street Journal ran an op-ed entitled "The Moral Duty to Destroy Hamas," which insisted to readers that Israel is entitled to do whatever it takes to uproot this evil, depraved culture that resides next to it. Thus, the outlet implicitly gave Israel a free pass to carry out whatever war crimes it wished upon the civilian population, whether that is using banned chemical weapons,
White phosphorus,
cutting off electricity and water, or targeting ambulances or United Nations officials.
Yep.
So this is an example from BBC. More than 500 people have died in Gaza after Israel launched massive retaliatory airstrikes, according to Gaza's health ministry. More than 700 people have been killed in Israel since Hamas launched its attacks on Saturday. Follow the latest article. So it gives the impression that die gives the impression of natural causes, so more passive versus.
But 700 have been killed.
Killed, which is more active.
They're also, look at the numbers. They're trying to say that Hamas killed more Israelis than Israel killed Gazans, which is definitely not the case.
Right.
So, like, they're underreporting the numbers on that by a lot.
Right.
Right.
Even with that sentence, 5 have died in Gaza after Israel launched massive retaliatory airstrike.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't die; they were killed.
Right.
So,
they fell over.
Right. So, but just kind of lessen the blow that it gives the subtle feeling of, oh, you're not going to think of it. So that's
right.
The point that Alan is trying to make.
I mean, they're also going with the "they were dead when I got here" excuse.
Right.
I'm surprised they don't try to make a glove not fit. So
right. So and he does mention my point, kind of what we just talked about, that the BBC told its readers that Israelis have been killed while people immediately died, removing any agency from its perpetrators and almost suggesting their deaths were natural. The National Review's editorial board was of similar mind, stating that Israel needs a long leash to destroy Hamas. This long leash, they explained, meant giving Israel far more time to carry out the destruction of Gaza. Western leaders will have to refrain from criticizing Israel or calling for calm and peace. The message was clear. International unity was paramount at this time. Mere trifles such as war crimes must be overlooked. And while Israel and its people were treated with special sympathy, i.e. Washington Post, the other side was written off as bloodthirsty radicals. While the phrase Palestinian terrorists could be found across the media spectrum, Fox News, New York Post, New York Times, its opposite, Israeli terrorists, was completely absent from corporate media. This, despite casualties on the Palestinian side outnumbering Israelis. Scroll down, please.
Yep.
Underlying the fact that Israeli lives are deemed more important is the way in which deaths are reported from each side are reported. The BBC, for example, told its readers that Israelis have been killed. Oh, I read. Oh, was that repeated?
No, it's just they're repeating the fact.
Fact. Okay. So we don't have to read that again. Missing from most of the reporting was the basic factual background of the attack. Few articles mentioned that Israel was built upon an existing Palestinian state and that most of the inhabitants of Gaza are descended from refugees ethnically cleansed from southern Israel in order to make way for a Jewish state. Also left unmentioned was that Israel controls almost every aspect of Gazians' life. This includes deciding who can enter or leave the densely populated strip and limiting the import of food, medicine, and other crucial goods. Aid groups have called Gaza the world's largest open-air prison. Technically a concentration camp or whatever. The United Nations has declared the conditions in Gaza to be so bad as to be unlivable. So this is kind of what Nika was saying in terms of humanitarian aid.
Right.
Are any Gazans going to get that aid? Because Israel controls what happens in Gaza. So,
which also I wanted to bring up with this along the same, there's this bit of propaganda going around of, well, why don't the Arab world take them in? Why doesn't Egypt let them in? And this is why would the Egyptians want the Palestinians to leave their homeland and come to Egypt? Like, if anything, they're going to support to Palestine from Egypt, which they are doing.
Right.
We've seen them do it, literally walk across the border, which is being bombed. Like, they are bombing their way, like the only humanitarian corridor. They're bombing, blaming it on Hamas.
But it's the idea of like, you take over my house, and I'm supposed to leave with my cousins in another house.
Right.
Why would I want to do that when I want my own house?
Collin, there's another border you could accept Palestinians through. You know what that border is called? The Israeli border.
Right.
You could just let them go through your country, and like, it's Israel going, no, well, why doesn't Egypt? Bro, you have a lot more border than Egypt does. If you want to let innocent people not be bombed, like, but we both know why you won't do that, and it's because you don't want any Palestinians near you. Like, so, yeah.
One of the principal reasons is that this crucial context is not given is that it could influence Western audiences into sympathizing with Palestinians or supporting Palestinian liberation. Giant media corporations are largely owned by or by transnational corporations, both of whom have a stake in preserving the status quo, and neither of whom wish to see national liberation movements succeed. Some media outlets make this explicit. Axel Springer, the enormous German broadcaster that owns Politico. requires its employees to sign its mission statement endorsing the Transatlantic Alliance and Israel. Jesus Christ. And has told any staff members that support Palestine to leave their jobs.
MSNBC fires 3 Muslim.
Well, they didn't fire them. They just put on ice, allegedly.
Why would you not leave then? I would leave. Leave that fucking place.
Because that money is so good. I mean, it must be in order for them not to.
I guess. But, like, that's also, like, we just don't want them to. That's worse. We just put them in the fucking basement is not better. Like, we just don't want to hear their voice right now. Is not like, you might as well fire them.
Right.
So, which
Other outlets,
but CNN did.
right. Other outlets are slightly less overt, but nonetheless have Israel red lines that employees cannot cross. CNN fired anchor. Well, he wasn't an anchor. He was a contributor. Mark Lamont Hill for calling for a free Palestine. I remember that. Katie Halper was fired from the Hill for accurately calling Israel an apartheid state. And I guess
if you're still at the Hill, maybe right. That's apparently fine for you.
Right, and apparently Brianna Joy Gray now is in hot ice with somebody. I think it might be the Hill.
Yes, it has to be the Hill. Rico Suave must be real upset.
Right. I mean, like we sent this to Bree, like you having a job at the Hill, like
ain't
the fact
helping
that
you, sister.
they let Katie go. The fact that they let Katie go, like you're
and
not
Kim.
that special.
And Kim. So, like, you're holding on to a check, you know?
Right.
Like, okay.
The Associated Press dismissed Emily Wilder after it became known that she had been a pro-Palestine activist during her college years. And The Guardian sacked Nathan J. Robinson after he made a joke mocking U.S. military aid to Israel. These cases serve as examples to the rest of the journalistic world. The message is that one cannot criticize the Israeli government's violent apartheid system or show solidarity for Palestine without risking losing their livelihoods.
Which you can see what Pornhub is doing to Mia Khalifa, what is happening to Gigi Hadid right now. Like, Tilda Swinton, all those cats are now being like, hey, don't talk about this shit. Like, did you see what they're doing to Mia Khalifa? To me, that's the most disgusting, vile thing. Like, any revenue they get from her videos that she's openly talked about how the porn industry exploited her, injured her, right? Like, among many things, and no longer supports the industry. It was back before there was a lot of protections, partially because of what her and women went through. They are now taking any revenue from her videos and giving it to Israel.
Ugh.
Like, how can you be like, because they own the rights to the videos because she signed her rights to them, which is like, girls, self-host that shit if you're gonna do it. Like, you make that money, not someone else. You don't need no pimp. Just saying. Like, a pimp named Slickback is not going to help you here, you know? So, yeah, it's, But
ultimately, then, corporate media play a key role in maintaining the occupation by manipulating public opinion. If the American people were aware of the history and the reality of Israel-Palestine, the situation would be untenable. For those wishing to maintain the unequal state of affairs, whereby an apartheid government expels or imprisons its indigenous population, the pen is as important as the sword.
More so in this case.
I think, more so, yeah. I think there's an article that I've been holding on to about how Hollywood is defending Israel. I think next week that might be a good time in light of this.
Yeah.
Kind of putting that out, kind of sharing that out as well. Because it's like media. Hollywood is media. Like, just how a lot of the
last Wonder Woman movie. It was all like pro-Israeli fucking nonsense. Gal Gadot herself can fucking jump off a cliff for all I care. She was in that army too. There's a few others in that army we know. Peter Dow. Like, so, if you're campaign manager for a supposedly pro-Palestinian candidate and, you killed Palestinians, that's kind of a little iffy.
Right. But you know what? As an aside, like going off tangent for a bit, but take 2 minutes of your time. But like we've shown explicitly how Toure has mentioned any person in leadership needs to be in what?
I mean, fight for what you're for. I know that one, but I mean, leadership's got to be member of the people, got to be part of the struggle.
Part of what? Part of what?
Organization.
Exactly. Now,
got to be organized.
Think about that. Right. Think about
can't just
that.
be a figurehead.
Right. Well, think about that for Dr. West.
Yeah.
What organization is he a part of?
Right. Is it going to be a single, head of the snake to get cut off, or is it going to be, like how's that going to work? What's he going to use? Where's his power come from?
Right. But I think, but the idea is that who's going to keep you accountable? Where essentially, like the idea that what I was saying, in terms of organization is what are your principles? What do you stand for?
Yeah.
And
when they ignore a ton of people saying that, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that, probably tells you.
Like that's why, like with Justice Democrats, and we've reported on this, that's why they're shit, because they haven't really kept the squad.
Same thing with Bernie. It was Bernie was the movement, not the movement was the movement. It's same issue.
So yeah. So
different,
but yeah,
extensions of our two-party system. Yay! Nothing like electoralism being fucking dog shit. Anyway, sorry if you're offended, but also not sorry. So speaking of offenses of the third degree, John Kiriakou here, who we've had on a few of our shows here at INN. Great guy, whistleblower, did some pretty important stuff. So he writes, a Victimizer's Memorial Special Consortium. Another war memorial is being planned for the National Mall in Washington. Another thing for you to go see, Collin. This one is for the 9/11 era, and it is being chaired by none other than W. Yay, W. So, Washington, D.C. Will soon welcome another major memorial on the National Mall. This one will be adjacent to the Lincoln Memorial and the Vietnam War Memorial.
That would mean it would be pretty big.
Yeah.
It would have to be.
Yep.
It will have to. Oh God.
Yay! I love when Collins.
Realize that it will have to be. It has to be significant.
Yeah.
In order to be like right there.
Oh, but wait, it's worse. If you thought that was bad, what is it? It's the Global War on Terror Memorial. Yeah, War on Terror. So this is despite a moratorium of new memorials on the National Mall. It's despite the fact.
Oh, but they're gonna push
that. It's despite the fact that the so-called, well, we'll get to why that's not an issue. So-called global war on terror is still ongoing, and it's despite a federal law saying that 10 years must pass from the end of a conflict until the beginning of construction of a monument to it. So they're like, you got to end the conflict before you can like make a thing. So perhaps most importantly, the new memorial will offer literally nothing in memory of the hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of innocent people in Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Libya, Pakistan, Syria, the Sahel, and elsewhere who were killed by U.S. forces. Yay! Bombs and drones in that war on terror. So, which we're funding more of.
Right.
The Global War on Terror Memorial has not yet been designed. You can help design it, Care Bear. A help design history survey on its website invites members of the public to provide input through multiple choice questions, okay? Which people can play along in the chat. They can put their answers right there in the comments to this question.
As friend to the show, Kit says, let's have some democracy.
It's democracy in the chat. So when someone stands before the General War on Terror Memorial, what do you hope they feel? The only possible responses. So this is the responses you may choose from, audience. Honor, healing, empowerment, unity, understanding, patriotism, and peace. That's so.
How about let's do ours.
Yeah.
You put if you stand before the W, that's what I'm going to call it, the W Memorial.
The W Memorial, yes.
What do you want to feel?
Unity.
I would personally put capitalism or colonial
torture, war crimes. Like these are, I don't know, Abu Ghraib. Like that would be great. Like make like a little Christ Redeemer of the guy in the hood. I'm just saying there's some options. If you were to design a global war on terror memorial, what would you make it as? Let us know.
That put his on a tear. He's like Gitmo, cluster bombs.
Yeah.
Straw
man. A little wicker man up there would be great. Waterboarding. Yeah, we could put a waterboarding thing. It'd be great. A little Santorum kit right there for you. Kiriaku continues.
You know what? This is actually kind of fun. Like once we clip this out, this will probably be clipped by next week.
Yeah.
In the comments, this clip, when we get there, write down in the comments what you would think of if this memorial ever becomes a thing.
Draw your design of the memorial. Send it to us at @GetIndieNews on Twitter with the hashtag Global War on Terror Memorial. Thank you. So we can do GWAT Memorial for short. But there's no option for anger over the deaths of innocent people. There's no option for fury over the creation of multiple torture programs. There's no opportunity to question the $6 trillion that the government spent on the war. I mean, you could just do that. Fucking like piles of money.
You can
pallets
cover,
of money.
You can cover everyone's student loan debt 3 times over.
More than that. Yeah, you could end world hunger for that kind of stuff for a good long time. So, for the estimated $2 trillion in estimated future expenses related to veteran health care. That's just the health care of our guys that we're spending, which none of the rest of us get it, which is partially why they don't want us to have health care, because it's the only incentive they give veterans in some cases. The website does say, however, that it hopes the memorial will convey a debt of gratitude for the sacrifice that GWAT service members made. They're service heroes.
We love our troops, folks.
Yes, we do. The memorial's leadership also is important. Understanding the direction that it's taking and ignoring the victims of the war on terror and in honoring the victimizers. The organization's chairman is none other than weapons of mass destruction, George W. The executive team and board of advisors includes an array of retired generals and colonels, including Colonel Sanders himself, hedge fund managers, oil executives, and 2 conflict windows. So, oil execs, hedge funds, okay, all your favorite people, Might as well throw lawyers in there, and you got a fucking trifecta of bullshit. You know, that's a terrible walk into a bar joke. You know, it promotes partnerships with a wide variety of veterans organizations, but there's no indication of its funding sources. Okay, other than some seed money. This is why it's already been seeded, right? So that the Trump administration enacted into law. Okay, and a page on the website asking for $20, $50, or $100. Man, that's cheaper than a fucking Cornell fundraiser. All right, so you know, get out there. You know, fund your memorials. Fuck yeah, dude! I'll call back any day of the week. Just like House Democratic lawmaker floats George W. Bush for Speaker of the House. Democratic lawmaker floats George W.
I mean,
he went on Ellen. Yeah, it's fine. Cool. He does cool paintings now. You know, he's an artist. He's just a struggling artist, Collin. So, yeah. So, there's no doubt, great band, by the way, of course, that by the end of the process, it will be fully funded, and I wouldn't be surprised Yes?
Go ahead, finish that paragraph.
See discreet thanks to the likes of Northrop Grumman, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, General Dynamics, and other weapons makers. I'm sure they'll have lovely plaques.
I'm sure, like, this Israel-Palestine issue will kind of help spur this on, too. So, I wouldn't be surprised if... Although I wanted the marketing of that, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, they will use this conflict in the Middle East right now to kind of
spur this.
Yeah.
Like, remember 9/11, guys? Remember? Like, that's remember when we hated all the Muslims? Remember? That's pretty much what it is. You know? So, but yeah, it's just fucking ugh. You know? Like, when are we gonna learn, Collin? When will people learn?
Never. I mean, we have enough money to waste on.
Yeah. It's just fucking ugh. Like, I hate doing these stories sometimes. It's just like, historically we've dealt with this 1,000 times already, but people still need to be. It's like, do you not remember? I remember. This is not that long ago. So I'm not surprised that a war memorial is planned for the 9/11 era. It was inevitable.
I mean, there is one. What happened? There is one. I thought the World Trade Center was this memorial, right?
Yeah.
I'm surprised that hasn't been in the article. There is one.
It was inevitable. These are monuments and memorials all over the National Mall, some of which are for conflicts that nobody even knows about anymore. I get it. And I get that each generation wants to commiserate a sugary sweet version of its military service. But why not be realistic here? Why not be honest about the war on terror? In many cases, it was a war of terror. Why not use the opportunity to educate the public and perhaps to work so that history doesn't repeat itself? So
we don't do that.
This is in Brazil. This is a monument to the victims of torture, by the way. You know, little nice bit of imagery there. So if I thought there were any remote chance that somebody at the Global War on Terror Memorial Foundation might listen to me, I would ask that the memorial commemorate the victims of the CIA and Pentagon torture programs at secret prisons around the world, at Guantanamo, and at Abu Ghraib. I would ask that they commemorate the innocent victims of the CIA rendition program where people were kidnapped, snatched off the street or from their homes, and rendered to other countries to face torture. Many of those people were utterly innocent. Just asked Mayor Ahar or Khalid al-Masri, just asked the dozens, perhaps hundreds, of people who were taken to secret CIA prisons around the world. They were simply disappeared in the name of fighting terrorism. Some were never seen again. Just ask the families of Afghan or Iraqi victims of the U.S. invasions of their countries or the victims of U.S. drone attacks. Entire families were wiped out without so much as an apology. Where is their memorial? And also to the people that are still in black sites, like Julian Assange, people who got out of black sites, Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, like all of which repeated war crimes of this particular war on terror. As I said earlier, I'm a realist. There's going to be a memorial in the National Mall. I just hope it's not too late to ensure that the truth is told about the war on terror. Future generations have a right to know. Care Bear, you live in D.C.
John, you are an optimist because there is no way that's going to happen. There's no way that on the National Mall is going to bring truth to people.
V.S. Adams in the chat. Wait, is this called a victimizer's memorial? That's the term.
I did. I answered it.
John Kiriakou.
What he called it in the article, not the memorial.
Yep. So,
although
Collin,
if you want to call it that,
you live in D.C. You know this area pretty well. You know it would be a pretty big memorial. You said. How do you feel about this being put in your city? Is there anything else they could fund in your city that you feel like would be more applicable?
Oh Jesus, where do I begin? I don't know. Like,
yeah.
Well, given this is federal, this is federal funding, so it wouldn't necessarily relate to anything that I'm doing more on the district, as in like the city level versus the federal level. But as I said, like, yeah, I mean, there's so many memorials at the national. I don't even remember half of them, but it's just like,
right.
Many of them are kind of pointless. Like the only ones, like it'd be one of the, I would say this: if it were a museum, well, again, they already have this in New York, but like if it were a museum, maybe I could buy that a little bit more. But even that I feel would be too much. But I think I know the reason why W is like on the executive board of this. I forgot what school he's affiliated with here. But this is kind of like, I know he kind of speaks on this issue, like the war, like, I mean, obviously kind of his thing when he was president. So I think it just makes sense that it will kind of fit into his wheelhouse a little bit, that he would be on the executive board for this.
I mean, you think with his mission being accomplished, he wouldn't have to, but
right.
Like,
or you would think that people would naturally kind of think of this rather than this feeling like a push on his regard, which I feel in a lot of ways is just a pet project to kind of build some type of legacy for himself, because he really has nothing. So that's what it kind of feels like to me.
Yeah.
But I mean,
and there's been a whitewashing of Bush for a while now, and that to where this is an acceptable thing to do. They're trying to make this all a romantic, like West Wing style.
But it leads into my point. This is a way for him to like finalize his legacy in a way that is whitewashed.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he's not going to live much. Like, I'm going to say this, he's not going to live much longer now. He needs something
to hold his legacy together. Yeah.
Right. So this is essentially a thing for him for people to kind of think of him somewhat fun, I guess. But I don't know if it's going to have the result that people are going to have with.
Well,
so
let us know in the comment what you would like to see as a memorial to the global war on terror. So, but yeah, that's it.
Right.
That's our show. Fucking another week of bullshit. So, yeah. I mean, I could just my brain is just full of versions of that fucking memorial. Like, dude, with that MLK memorial, they could do anything they want. That was just a fucking,
Well, which one I see? Well, I see in the chat. Which one are you talking about?
Yeah, the giant turd, the giant floating turd. That one, yeah. Fucking awful.
Yeah, that was awful.
Yeah. Like, sorry, bro, who made that, but you could have done better. But like, that photo you're pulling that one set thing from, you could have just made that, but like the actual photo.
Right.
That would have been way better.
Yeah. You were better off doing, well, it was the idea. Well, I think it's called the embrace. You were better off just doing an embrace of
Loretta and
and Dr. King versus
that.
So, but anyway, so should we announce shows for this upcoming week?
Yep,
I guess
we should. This bit
I did put it up. Yeah. So, and then he's not here. So,
I gotta pull something up for him.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead.
No one wants to work anymore. No one wants to work anymore. That will be on tomorrow night,
which he's probably recording now.
Yep. Tara.
Haven't heard a guest for Tara, but stay tuned on Twitter. Sometimes we get those last minute. Angel in the afternoon.
Well, I guess evening now.
Yeah.
7.
What?
Also, if he might be trying to change, I guess, the name of his show.
Sure.
I suppose. But, let him know if he were to change it. Like, let him know what he should change it to. Friday 10 o'clock is replay of Boats from Sunday night's show. Nothing on Saturday. Sunday.
So Boats is going to be live this week. By the way, because we had internet issues last time. So tune in for that. 10 o'clock Friday night. You guys probably need a big brain cleanse anyway. So do that. Saturday, take the day off. Go do something else. Go touch grass.
Sunday, how do we miss out with Indy and Reef?
Which
at 10?
We are going to go through announcing the honorees on next Sunday for this. The Indie Media Awards. So another round of those. So no thanks. I don't want to right now. But you can see all the ones from 2022. People like Kevin Gostola, Alex Rubenstein, top live streamers. So this all lets you, find some of the better outlets that we use constantly on this show. As well as How Do We Miss That? So, tune in for that as we go through 2023's stuff. So, yeah, it'd be fun. But anything else?
And then,
yeah, hold on. Let me get back.
Go back to the schedule.
Yep.
So then Monday we'll have Politically Homeless with Crab and Chris at 9. And then next Tuesday will be American Tradition. I would guess.
Yep.
No, yeah, he would. Yeah, because Jesse is on vacation this week, so yeah, he'll be back. So yeah, And then, so I think probably next week for us, we might do, I guess, a Halloween episode, somewhat, maybe. I don't know.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
Yep.
That is it for us.
You also got some merch.
And
you can pick yourself up some stuff. You know, spend your monies, consume, obey, consume.
And like Reef said, I worked on a couple of designs, so hopefully we should have those up pretty soon. Maybe we can have them in time for our anniversary.
Yeah, we can bang that out pretty quick.
Yeah,
I'll walk you through it so that you know how.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's it. I'm sure we're forgetting 1,000 things. Puppers, you want to go outside? Kibble.
So
kibble.
Thank you guys for watching. I know a lot of you are now coming in late.
Yeah, go back. Rewind.
Sure
go all the way back. What else are you doing? You know?
And then
Nothing.
make sure you you guys subscribe. Make sure you comment. Make sure you do all the things.
Yep.
Like I said, thank you guys for supporting us. As we said, this stream will probably be demonetized.
Yep.
So,
do all the other stuff.
Help us. Yeah.
Smash that like button.
Us out. We're able to do that and not necessarily rely on YouTube. You could do that as well.
If you're new here,
otherwise,
please subscribe. We appreciate that. Lets you know you see your videos a little better, supposedly. But you can also become a member either on Patreon or on YouTube, and we'll put your name right down there. Look, we're talking Wombat. He's going that way. Those people, listen to the ticker. Did any of you even read the ticker? If I put it there, you even read it. I could leave messages in there. No one would see them. But anyway, I think that's it. I think we did it.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. Remember, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week.
We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Bye, have a great time.